Well, hey, one and all youth, Paul here. In the last few weeks, we've been talking about something called wisdom, and the wisdom that we see in the book of Proverbs. The book of Proverbs is filled with all sorts of practical wisdom that can be applied to many aspects of our lives. Money, relationships, work, our words, our friends, how we treat others, so many facets of life. And it's not just good wisdom, it's God's wisdom. It's wisdom that we take in because we know that God's mind and perspective is so much higher and greater than ours. And the book of Proverbs contains wisdom that urges us to reject our sensibilities and embrace the lifestyle of the kingdom of heaven. That wisdom starts with something called the fear of the Lord, which is the perspective that we see God for who he is, and we respect God and we honor God's power over our own. Last week, we saw how Proverbs depicts wisdom as a woman who calls out to the people around to listen to her. And rather than see Proverbs as a list of right and wrongs, we can see it as a foundation of wisdom that we can follow, and how our choices are either more wise or more foolish. As we go into our lives, we want to have wisdom, right? We want the wisdom that God has given us. And for that, we turn to places like the book of Proverbs, as we've been doing the last few weeks. But what do we do when there's not a proverb for our life? What do we do when we encounter a situation that doesn't seem to be covered by the Bible? Proverbs says nothing about my Instagram account. It doesn't say about my TikTok scrolling. Or what do we do when we run into something like this? Proverbs 26:4 says, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will become just like him." Proverbs 26:5 says, "Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own wise." Well, what does that mean? Well, Proverbs 26:4 says to do one thing. Proverbs 26:5 says to do the opposite. Well, why is that? It's because wisdom is not science. Wisdom is discernment. Discernment is the ability to look at a situation and say, based off of the things I've seen before and what I know from the past, I'm going to make a decision, even if there isn't a clear-cut way that spells out what to do. My hope for you as you go out into the world is that you will be able to have discernment and make decisions rooted in this wisdom, even if there isn't an easy verse that tells you what to do. How can we be more discerning in our actions this week?
There are multiple verses in the book of Proverbs that encourage the readers to show kindness to the people around. Regardless of circumstances, regardless of who they are, where they come from, or whether or not they've been kind to us, we are called to be kind and to care for them. And the reason why this is so important is because this honors God. Regardless of who we are or what we have done, God's kindness and care for us is never ending. And we know this about God because in Exodus 34:6, God describes himself as gracious, merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. And even though there are times that we go against his desires and his will, in his patience, he still responds to us in kindness and he meets our needs. We care for others because we received care from him first. We show kindness to those around us because we have experienced and benefited from the kindness that he has shown us. And more than just that, God has always had such a heavy heart for the needy, for the poor, for the oppressed, for the outcasts. And when we show kindness to those in need, we reveal God's heart to them. This is why in Proverbs 14:31, for example, it says, "Whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him." And the reason why it says the one who oppresses insults his maker is because we are made in God's image and we represent our maker to others. When we don't care for those in need, but we do the opposite of that, we are not representing our maker well. It is also because we know that others are made in the image of God. And when we don't treat them well, it's like we aren't treating God well. Now, we may have never been in a situation where we've oppressed the poor or put heavy burdens on the needy. So how can we even put this proverb into practice? The way to do that is always to look at the heart behind it. Our actions towards other people always starts from the heart. So that means to oppress someone starts from a place of viewing them as less than. And when we view them as less than, we treat them as less than. We burden them and we put them down because of how we view them. And being generous to the needy doesn't just have to be in our money. We can be generous with our time, in our attention, and even with our care to those that need it. And it can look something like this. I'll never forget the time that I was about 13 or 14. I was so much more shy than I am today. I felt so awkward in social settings, and it was really difficult for me to fit in with others. I even used to get made fun of for being so sheltered and so reserved. And in a lot of ways, I felt like an outcast. I was in my youth group at the time, and one of the girls who was a bit older than me and who was definitely very well liked amongst the youth group, she saw that I was online on Facebook, which was the main social media site that we used at the time, and she reached out to me. And I saw this message pop up that said, "Hey, Desi, how are you?" And I kid you not, I was so surprised that she even reached out to me just to say hi. I honestly thought she reached out to the wrong person and meant to reach out to someone else. But no, she just wanted to check in with me, and she wanted to see how I was doing and see how she could pray for me. And from that point on, I remember she was always so kind to me and made me feel included. She wasn't one of the ones who put me down for being a bit more awkward or more reserved, or she didn't make me feel less than because of it. And I'm sure, honestly, she saw those times that I was just by myself and I didn't know how to jump in with everybody. And she saw that what I was in need of was a friend. I was in need of being shown love and kindness. She wasn't one of the ones who put me down for my status in the group around me, but she spent the time to care for me and to be generous to me in that way. And the heart behind this proverb is to recognize what others need and not to take advantage of their need, but to recognize how we can care for them to meet the needs that they have. And here's one more example with a proverb that talks about how much we should care for others, maybe in circumstances that might be a bit more difficult. Proverbs 25:21 says, "If your enemy is hungry, give him something to eat. And if he is thirsty, give him water to drink." Yes, we are even called to care for our enemies. Now, we may have never had an enemy like the kind of enemy that's being talked about here. I mean, this was back when an enemy was somebody that you went up and you went in battle against. And I'm sure that's not a situation that any of us have ever been in before. But again, let's look at the heart behind what the proverb is saying. Have you ever had somebody that felt like an enemy to you? Have you ever had a major disagreement or a falling out with a friend or family member? Have you ever had somebody in your life that tends to be mean to you, or have had someone hurt your feelings in such a way that is just so difficult to even forgive? Those are the ones that we need to care for and show kindness to, even when it feels completely the opposite of what we want to do. So maybe that means that someone we're at odds with is injured and we can help them carry their things. Or maybe they lose someone in their family and we can bring food to them just to help them make things a little bit easier. This is how we can take the heart behind what this proverb is saying and applying it to our lives and how to act. All of this is meant for us to be more like God and to point back to Him. So we're going to be going into a time of discussion, and I encourage you to remember this, to keep this at the forefront of your minds. How can we use the wisdom behind these proverbs to be kind and to care for others?